Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Your Life. I'm with you, your host, Estella Manova, as usual. And today I wanted to talk to you about changing others' mindset. And as I'm here in Kyrgyzstan and I've been coaching people in Kyrgyzstan, and also thinking back and also looking at other clients who've been coming up with questions of how to change the other person so I can be happy mindset. And I thought that I really want to do a separate episode on this because this is something that I see internationally is happening. And because initially my thought was, oh, is it something that I'm seeing a lot in Kyrgyzstan, or it's something that also happens in other countries? And I have analyzed all of my clients' problems, and I see that this is something that is applicable internationally. Many of us have this mindset that if the other person changed the way I want to, I would be happier, my life would be better, easier, and all of the things. And I would love to talk to you about how you can recognize it, what are the ways that you can see this happening, and what are the consequences of it, and what to do about it. But before, I want to give you several examples that I've been recently coaching people on that I think would be helpful for you to visualize what that is in practice. So one of the clients that I coached yesterday, she was telling me that at work there is a colleague of hers who've been friends in the beginning, and then now they're no longer friends, and she's trying to provocate her according to her story, right? And she's trying to do all of these things in order to create a conflict where my client was saying she does not want that conflict, and she was telling that I really wish that she didn't do this, she didn't do that, and all of these things, so I could continue being a great worker and do all the things. In other words, I really want her to change in order for me to feel good about it, because currently she was feeling frustrated the whole time, attacked indirectly, and she feels like she's no longer feeling this peace and feeling this focus on her work, because the whole time she's thinking about what the other person is doing and how the other person is trying to get her or hurt her or make it in some way her life at work miserable, right? So we can all relate to this story, I think, and that's one of the examples. The other example that I also coached a client of mine yesterday was, I wish the husband changed, and I wish the husband did this and this, and I wish that husband earned a lot of money. I wish the husband educated the children the way I want to. I wish the husband did all the things that I want, because I'm miserable and I'm not happy because the husband is so different than I. Again, the same mindset of I want to change the other person so I can feel happy and peaceful and good about myself and about the relationship. Right. So this is the mindset that I see often happening everywhere. Um, Obviously, including in my own life, where I also tend to say things like, I wish this person did this. I wish they behaved in this way so that they could have a success in life, and whatever the version that I'm thinking of that I'm expecting them to do, and they're not doing. Now, we know this is happening, and the way that you may find out for yourself how this is happening is I divide it into three stages or three separate ways that you can recognize it. So, one is thinking in your own head and creating or having lots of emotions towards that person or about that person without even communicating, right? So, this could be like judgments of, I wish this person was this way, I wish my boss was behaved in this way, or I wish they were more competent, they were more professional, they were this and they were that, and they're not, right? So that's like the first layer that often comes up of us judging someone else and saying that um, we really want them to behave in this way and they're not doing it. Instead, they're doing this and we're judging them. So this is one of the beginning stages of how we tend to judge people, create lots of opinions about that person, and having lots of emotions about that person, right? So this is the first one. And we tend to do that a lot, and it's like something like automatic that we tend to do that. But sometimes we tend to have a lot of that opinion about one particular person, especially in workplace or in our household or in our loved ones, and we keep um, forming more and more and more opinions about that person as to how they're not behaving the way that we want them to behave. The second stage is when we start communicating or showing our dislike or our expectations or whatever it is. We keep communicating either verbally to them or to other people, or we start even showing that without really even saying it, right? So you can always see, for instance, I remember a lot of them uh, conversations outside of work, or when when people are on coffee breaks talking about this person, we wish this person was this, or we even would later somehow show this to that person without even saying it. That's still communicating to that person or to someone else about that person. Now, the third one, the third stage, I find a lot um, of the time happening, especially in my culture. And I think I know also many other cultures where this is happening, where it's almost like a demand, right? It's almost like a demand or a unwritten law, or an expectation that's considered normal that you have it. And it's something like, well, you have to do this in order to be successful, right? Or I want you to behave this way in order to fit in. Or in our tradition, this is how it's done, and you're not behaving. So it's a bit like demand slash expectation. And if you don't do it, you are a bit like an outcast or outlaw, or excluded from that group or community or workspace, whatever it is. And this, well, sometimes is considered extreme, other times it's considered this is how things are. We expect things from each other. You have to change. If you don't change, then you don't belong, basically. This is what we're saying, right? And all of this is obviously done with the purpose of us feeling good about it, about that person or about that situation. In other words, we're wanting the other person to change so we can feel happy, not frustrated, well, peaceful, not disappointed. And we feel like we're in a good relationship. We feel like we're doing a good job. We're in a community that is according to our expectations. So we all do this. We want this change with the other person so that we feel good about it, essentially. Now, the thing that is most striking for me, and I think you can also think for yourself, is we know by now, or we've known for so long, that we cannot change the other person, right? This is like something that I think we know in some way or another. We cannot change the other person. We cannot influence the other person unless the person allows us to influence, allows us to change, unless the person wants that change. Now, that's like the truth of the universe that we know. The fascinating part for me is we continue doing it nevertheless. In other words, we continue wanting to change that person nevertheless. Even though we know that that's not possible, even though we know that we probably don't want to act like a nagging person or person who keeps telling the other person what to do, even if we don't want to show up that way in life or in relationships, yet we continue doing it. In the case of my first client that I talked about, she was now behaving exactly the same way that the other person was behaving and starting this um, uh, unofficial war, so to say, against her because she was behaving exactly the way that she was judging the other person for. Right? She was saying that, well, the other colleague does not address me by name, always talks to other people and not me, and all of these things. And now she's doing the exact same thing that she's judging her for. And in the second client, excuse me, the solution that my client found in her husband's situation, she was saying that now she's just trying to ignore him as much as possible and dividing everything and telling him that you don't touch me, I don't touch you, and we just educate our children in our separate ways. I do my things with children and you do your things with children. It's just that we stay under one roof. We're like husband and wife, but otherwise everything needs to be separate because we don't really know how to communicate otherwise, right? So these are the solutions that they think works. And many of us believe this is how things are, or this is how what the solution is. The problem is, though, that those solutions are not sustainable and leading to more problems, right? Because if you don't communicate with the husband anymore, and if you're trying to educate children in two different ways, this will have impact on the children, obviously, but also on her on daily basis of being frustrated the whole time and trying to ignore him the whole time. I'm assuming similar effects is happening on him. And in the first client's case, the war, so to say, as she told me, the war is ongoing, and this just keeps contributing to her not feeling well and always being tense, and always trying to be on guard and trying to find ways how to get back at her. Right now, if we know that that's not a solution, if we know that that's a reactive mechanism that we're trying to somehow cope with the situation, then the question is, what is the actual solution that is sustainable, that's long term, that helps us feel the way we want to feel? And the solution to that is actually very simple, the one that you probably know already, and it's something that's not news, but we try not to change the other person. And the way we do that is we recognize that we can create the feeling of happiness, wanting to feel safe or peaceful, whatever the feeling that we're wanting to have. We can have that, we can create that irrespective of their behavior. Whatever their behavior is, we don't need to use that to feel good or to feel bad. We can feel that good, we can feel bad without that behavior. Because in the end, we are the one generating those feelings and they're being like our triggers, right? So that's in the nutshell. Now, it will not be easy, and I have done it myself and I have experienced this myself. It's not going to be easy. And the reason why it's not easy to do that is because we continue judging the other person. As long as we keep judging the other person, saying that this is a bad behavior, this is not how I want them to be, this is how, right? If we keep believing, expecting, and keep generating these thoughts about the other person, it will not be easy to feel the way you want to, whatever the thing that you're wanting to feel, because you will be always judging that other person for how they're behaving and believing that their behavior is influencing your well-being, which actually is not the case. You are allowing the other person's behavior to influence your well-being. The question is, why are you allowing it? So if you don't want to allow this anymore, try to turn that judgment into a curiosity and develop some sort of compassion and find out why the other person might be behaving the way that they are behaving. If you can't develop anything, you can at least try to find out what are you trying to achieve with these heavy judgments, right? What is the outcome of that? The outcome of that usually is the situation exacerbating, which I've highlighted in these examples. If we don't want that situation to exacerbate, then it's actually easier to find out how to lessen that judgment, how to make it less so that you actually don't depend on the other person's behavior, right? In other words, you don't have this mindset of, I don't feel good if that person does this and this and this. Because you can feel whichever way you want to, irrespective of how they're showing up. Now, this is where the important piece comes in, is that you need to remember how you want to show up in that relationship, irrespective of how the other person behaves. And the example of my first client, she was telling me that she wants to behave professionally. She wants to continue cooperating and working with her because that's part of her job. And she does not want to be doing the things that she's doing that she's judging her for. Right? So that means that she has her own way of how she wants to show up. And she needs to continue showing up that way, irrespective of how the other person is trying to start a war, so to say. Now, the caveat that I always tell you is that if it's a misuse or abusive relationship, you need to obviously report it or discuss it with that person, or find a way, maybe even to terminate that relationship, whether it's a work relationship or personal, right? So if it's an abusive relationship, meaning that it's something that is like a verbal abuse, or I don't think it will be a physical abuse, but if it's a verbal abuse, that you need to find a way to stop it by reporting about it, by discussing with that person or discussing with other people in the hierarchy according to that organization's protocol, whatever it is, you need to find a way to stop. So, to wrap up, all of what I'm saying is that changing someone we know won't work. Expecting the other person to behave in a particular way won't work unless we specifically tell the other person what we're expecting. And even then, there is no guarantee that it will work, but at least we have expressed our wishes and desires. There is no use of keep expecting you should be able to do this, you should behave this way, you should be this, because other people tend to be the way they are. And us expecting and magically believing they will behave according to our expectation is something that is just a recipe for you feeling bad. And if you don't want to feel bad, and if you want to feel the way you want to feel, then you need to recognize that you can do that irrespective of the behavior of the other person. And if it's an abusive relationship, then obviously you need to find a way to stop that relationship or help the other person understand that this is an abusive relationship and it needs to have consequences, right? So whenever the judgments come up, and that's where the suffering comes, because as long as you keep judging the other person, and even if you don't tell the other person, but you keep judging the other person as to why that person is this and this and this, then you will feel this emotional drainage, this emotional weakness and powerlessness in some way because you are believing that your well-being depends on the other person's behavior, which obviously is not the case if you don't allow it. So find out how you might be currently allowing other person's behavior dictate how you want to feel simply because you decided you want to change them or you want them to be different than they are. Now, the interesting part also, that is something maybe deeper and an advanced concept, which is whatever you are judging the other person for is probably something deep down you are also judging yourself for, or something that you are not accepting about yourself, and therefore you're also not accepting about the other person. Now, this might be something for another day's topic, so that's why I did not want to touch this. But anyway, coming back to wanting to change the other person, the obvious part is start looking at how you want to show up in that relationship, whether it's a work relationship or a personal relationship, how you want to show up, irrespective of how others behave, and replace your judgments about other people into a curiosity to find out more as to why they might be behaving this way instead of judging categorically of this is bad, this is good, or whatever it is. Because those types of judgments may not be beneficial for you. Instead, it may continue contributing to you not feeling well. Okay, my dears, I hope it's been helpful. So if you're having this changing others mindset, then it's time to stop and start changing your mindset around what you want to do, how you want to show up, and how you want to be feeling, irrespective of how other people behave. Unless it's an abusive relationship, which you will know what to do and how to stop that relationship. Okay, my dears, if you have any questions or want coaching on this and how you might be in this situation trying to change someone else's behavior or believing that you are at fault and you need to punish yourself or whatever the thing that you're going on, you let me know. We clarify with you as to how you want to show up and find out what are the reasons why you're not showing up that way and help you get on track to showing up the way you want to. See you next Friday. Have a great weekend.